Hey guys, how's it going? I wasn't really planning on recording a video today, but I sat down at my desk and just want to spend some quiet time with the Lord, and I opened up to Hosea and I started reading. Somewhere at some point, sometime, I left off in here, and I had just made some notes and was looking at it. If you want to look at it right now, it's Hosea 4 is where I left off at. And I had made some notes in the margin about adultery. And I was like, oh yeah, adultery starts with dissatisfaction and disappointment. It starts with unmet expectations, which is why I always say don't come into marriage with expectations. Just be open for what's going to happen instead of trying to set up some kind of contractual agreement with your spouse. Nevertheless, I was reading through it, and I'm going to read through some of these verses here real quick. And I got a psalm I want to pair this with, but just listen to this. Hosea 4:1. It says, "Hear the word of the Lord, O people of Israel. The Lord has brought charges against you, saying, there is no faithfulness, no kindness, no knowledge of God in your land. You make vows and break them. You kill and steal and commit adultery. There is violence everywhere, one murder after another. This is why your land is in mourning, and everyone is wasting away. Even the animals, the birds of the sky, and the fish of the sea are disappearing. Don't point your finger at someone else and try to pass the blame. My complaint, you priests, is with you." Wow. So I read all of that. I was like, oh, okay, I can see where I'm going with this. And then that last one there, verse 4, "Don't point your finger at someone else and try to pass the blame. My complaint, you priests, is with you." And I started kind of thinking about my own life and started thinking about what's going on in my own life, and I'm like, I'm the priest of my home. I'm the priest of this environment, the priest of the two amazing children that are out there, and my amazing bride. I'm that priest. I'm the one that's supposed to be leading my family. It's not my wife's job to lead us spiritually. It's my job. And so much of the gospel, just in the New Testament, when Jesus is talking about where we should start, we start in Jerusalem, right? And then work our way out in concentric circles. And it's the same thing with us as human beings. Like, we have to start here in our own hearts, preach the gospel to ourselves, create revival in ourselves, and then it spreads out from there. And I was reading through these things. There's no faithfulness, there's no kindness, there's no knowledge of God in your land at all. You kill, you steal, you commit adultery, you make vows and you break them. This is why your land is in mourning. And I started thinking about our world and started thinking about what was going on in our world and just here in the United States and how this nation is in mourning. It's in mourning like crazy because of revival of racism, because of gender issues, because of all this other tertiary stuff that's on the outside of where the real issue is. And the real issue ends up being our hearts. I want you to flip over real quick, if you're keeping track, over to Psalm 12. I'm just going to read a quick couple of verses here. Psalm 12, verse 1. "Help, O Lord, for the godly are fast disappearing. The faithful have vanished from the earth. Neighbors lie to each other, speaking with flattering lips and deceitful hearts. May the Lord cut off their flattering lips and silence their boastful tongues. They will say, we will lie to our heart's content. Our lips are our own. Who can stop us?" The Lord replies, "I have seen violence done to the helpless and heard the groans of the poor. Now I will rise up and rescue them, as they have longed for me to do so." Wow. Again, when I read this, I was like, that's our world right now. So much of the world out there, people who don't believe in the God of the Bible, who don't believe in Christianity. And I'm not going to make this video about apologetics and about which faith is right or whatever, but the nation was founded on these principles, and we've walked away from it because people have started to believe that that's our parents, our grandparents' belief. We're going to make our own. We're not going to be subject to anybody. We're not going to have to bow down to anyone. We got our own life. We can do what we want to do. And it just reminds me of this verse in here. It says, we will lie to our heart's content. Our lips are our own. Who could stop us? And we hear that so much, right? Like, it's my life. I'm going to do what I want to do. As long as I'm not hurting anyone, it's fine. The reality is that you are. By living your life the way you want to live, in any way, shape, or form, any fashion you want to live it, thinking that you're not connected to anyone else in this world, connected to anyone else in your home, in your environment, you're failing to see the impact of the decisions that you're making. And I guess my plea, really as priests for the household, men, is that we have got to be aware of the decisions we're making on a daily basis, whether it be the decisions that we're doing professionally, whether that be my decision to lead my family in prayer, whether that be my decision to lead my coworkers in a godly life, to be that example that I'm supposed to be. God is not broken. Jesus is not broken. It's the Christians that have been following Christ that have made a really bad reputation and really bad ambassadorship to God and who He is. And the reason why people are turning away, and the reason why people are getting a bad taste in their mouth, is because the priests, us, the men who are supposed to be leading, are failing to do so. It's, I always get Memorial Day and Labor Day screwed up. It's one of those two holidays today, I apologize. But how many of us guys are sitting down getting ready for whatever baseball game is going to start, or whatever football game is going to kick off, and we're in our own confined space in our own world where, we're away from our family, our kids, and we're not spending that quality time and really investing in something that requires investment to grow and to flourish. Instead, we've isolated ourselves to go watch the game or go run. Today I went for a run this morning, so I did the same thing. And it's something that I need to be aware of, and something I want us as men to be aware of as well, is that our actions affect those little ones. Our actions, whether we directly affect them or whether we're directly excluding them or doing something on our own, affect that relationship. And God's complaint in Hosea here is not with the culture, it's not with all of these random people, it's with the priests, it's with you and me. He says, don't point the blame anywhere else, it's with you. I'm going to question you. If you flip the page over, verse 5. So you will stumble in broad daylight, and your false prophets will fall in the night. I will destroy Israel, your mother. My people are being destroyed because they don't know me. Whose job is it to know them? Whose job is it to teach God to be like true love, agape, biblical understanding of love to the people? It's our job to do that. There's another verse here. So the kids are already knocking on the door here. So the more the priests, it says here, we'll just read through the verses here. Verse 6, it says, since your priests refuse to know me, I refuse to recognize you as my priests. Since you have forgotten the laws of your God, I will forget to bless your children. The more priests there are, the more they sin against me. They have exchanged the glory of God for the shame of idols. We exchanged the glory of God for the shame of idols. False things to take God's place, whether that be nowadays money or time spent someplace else. But there's another verse on here. I want to find it real quick and I want to show it to you here. Okay, here it is. When the people bring their sin offerings, this is verse 8. When the people bring their sin offerings, the priests get fed. So the priests are glad when the people sin. The people sin and the priests are glad because they get fed. We need to change our perspective on everything that's going on in the world. We need to change our perspective and engage as men into the culture, to engage the body of Christ, to be the ones that are on the front line, charging ahead, to be fully focused, because the time we have is so incredibly short. Our time is almost up here. And when we get to the throne, when we get to the throne room of God, He's going to ask us what we did with the time that He's given us. When my wife stands before the Lord, when my wife stands in front of Him, He's going to ask me how I led her. It's not going to be all on her, it's going to be on me as the man. It's going to be my job to lead my family, to lead my culture, to lead my world, and to affect it positively. And when we stop towing the line, and we stop playing ball, and we take a break, and then we decide to drop our guard, or the devil catches us slipping, and then horrible things happen. For instance, there's a couple articles here on the Business Insider right now. 5 genocidal massacres that are still continuing. Myanmar, where thousands of people are being killed daily. The majority of them are Buddhist country and Muslims. There's one here in South Sudan. People are being massacred on a daily basis. It's ethnic cleansing. Christians and the Yazidis in Iraq and Syria. I've heard a lot about this one. Fleeing Iraq and fleeing Syria. The Muslim population is attacking the Christians and killing them. ISIS has carved out a caliphate in that area between 2014 and 2015. And they're persecuting and running down the Yazidis, the Shiites, the Shiite Muslims there as well. Muslims and Christians in Central Africa. It's continuing since 2013. In Sudan, Darfur. I mean, these things are still going on. And as a Christian man, I wonder how much of this I am not directly responsible for. Because Christ said, as you're going through the world, preach the gospel and make disciples. As I'm going through the world, and have I done that? Have I done that well enough? Have I done everything that I can on my end? God does all, and we do all, right? As Jonathan Edwards said, it's not that I do a little bit, God does everything else. We do everything that we can. We use the full amount of time that we have and not waste it. So my encouragement and my plea for us is that this accusation in Hosea 4, verse 4, don't point your fingers at someone else and try to pass the blame. My complaint, you priests, is with you. I pray that we would take that seriously and that God wouldn't have a complaint to levy against us now. Every day is a new day to start over again. You know, as men, we always say, well, one day I'll get to that. No. Today is day one. This is day one. It's not one day, it's day one. We start right now, right here and right now when we move forward. And every day is day one, not one day. I'm so sick of hearing men with wishbones instead of backbones. It's time to step up, time to move forward, time to do our job. We already dropped the ball in the garden. That's what got us in this situation already. Let us man up. Let us do it right. Let us move forward. Let us make sure that this complaint isn't something that God has got levied against us. I'm going to go now, and I'm going to go minister to my family. And I'm going to go pray for my family. And I pray that you do the same thing.